The Jeff Lebby era down in Starkville start off with a bang. Mississippi State gets a massive win over Eastern Kentucky. But now comes the major test as they head out to the West Coast, Best Coast, where maybe you look at Arizona State a bit differently. Who comes out on top and who needs this win more to set a standard heading into both SEC and Big 12 play? Welcome on into SEC Unfiltered. He's Dave Shumate. I'm Cole Thompson, breaking down everything that you need to know coming into Tempe, Arizona, as the Mississippi State Bulldogs have their first major test of the season, traveling out to face Kenny Dillingham and the Sun Devils. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure that you hit subscribe down below because this is your new home for all things SEC. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow us on the social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at SEC Unfiltered. Follow him on Twitter, at Mock10 Sports. Follow me on Twitter, at Mr. Cole Thompson. And to keep up with all of our great work, make sure that you visit SECUnfiltered.com. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the promo code SECU at prizepicks.com to get a $50 instant win when you play with your first $5 lineup. Promo code SECU at prizepicks.com. Don't miss out on the action today. Dave, we're going to talk about Mississippi State. The Jeff Lebby era, I think, went about as good as you want it to be. But Arizona State was a team that I was not paying that much attention to. They were certainly flying under the radar after losing Jaden Rashada this offseason to Georgia. What does Kenny Dillingham do? Well, he shuts me up and he shuts up a lot of the country with a 48-7 win over Wyoming. It's no longer the Craig Bowl Wyoming-led team, but still the same aura and energy that resides in Laramie is supposed to carry on over with this new staff. Still very much the same staff as before, and it just felt like from the start, the Sun Devils pried their pitchforks into the side of the Cowboys and made them say, "Uncle." Big pick six to start off the game, and from there, the Sun Devils went running.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, usually I took Wyoming plus 7.5. I thought they would cover that. It got out of hand real quick. You mentioned the turnovers, but it'll be interesting to see. Kenny Dillingham likes to sling it around a little bit. He's a Mike Norvell disciple, Gus Malzahn disciple a little bit to an extent, but maybe he gets back to his Gus Malzahn days a little bit. I mean, I know he was with him a year, but looked at the run game. I mean, would they go? How many yards did they rush for again? It was something like what, 241.
241, yeah, 4.9 yards.
You mentioned a couple of guys. I mean, you were talking off air. I mean, you had the Skatebow kid, Cam Skatebow, rushed for 49. To Carlos Brooks, 47. Sam Levitt, the quarterback, at 47. Jason Brown, 33 yards. You had a lot of people. Wyoming is not used to that happening, just getting it shoved right down their throat. I mean, they average almost like 4.5 yards a carry, I think. So that's something that's new, a little bit more physical Arizona State Sun Devil team. This is a big one across the board, I think, for Kenny Dillingham heading into his first year in the Big 12. If they want to get to a bowl game, I think the Sun Devils, just like Mississippi State and Jeff Lebby, need this game. They both want to go undefeated in non-conference play and then try from there to go get 2 to 3 wins in conference play. And hey, let's go bowling for Kenny Dillingham and the boys year 2, but for Jeff Lebby and the boys in year 1. So that'll be interesting. I think this game's going to be more of a line of scrimmage game than people are expecting.
Kenny Dillingham, absolutely, I think, set a standard moving forward. I think that he will be the right coach for this organization. Definitely, having the alumni ties, that helps out a lot. But Sam Leavitt looked awesome. The Michigan State transfer really kind of made you forget about Jaden Rashada. They wanted every single level of the field: total yards, turnover rate, first downs, time of possession. Those are ways that you want to win, and it's certainly, I think, a benefactor for you if you're playing at home. But let's focus on Mississippi State for a minute. I said in the offseason that even though I'm not a big believer, you and I are both known haters of the Bulldogs, apparently, and known haters of Jeff Lebby. But I said in the offseason, I believe that the best and most underappreciated quarterback head coach combo added this offseason was Blake Shapen working alongside Jeff Lebby.
Yeah, you couldn't ask for a better quarterback year 1 for your system for sure.
Literally 15-20, 247 passing yards, 3 touchdowns through the air, another one on the ground. The run game, albeit still has some question marks, it looked a lot better than I thought advertised. Kevon Lee had 9 carries for 40 yards. Davin Booth, 4.9 yards per play, a rushing touchdown. They averaged 5.8 yards, 200 yards on the ground. This is going to be an offense that emulates a lot of different intricacies of elements in college football, where they're not an air raid, they're not a run first, but they have a very similar veer and shoot. Vertical receivers down the field, similar to what you saw in the Dana Holgerson type of style brand, in this type of style in the Art Briles element, We know that Art Briles and Lebby have a very good relationship together, but also the rushing and up-tempo that you saw with Josh Heupel when he was working with him at UCF. So when you see these elements, if they can coexist together, I don't know what we're going to see at Mississippi State when it gets to conference play, but 4-0 in non-conference feels like a very manageable situation.
Yeah, for Mississippi State and Jeff Lebby. I mean, this feels like it's it. You got to win this one if you're trying to get to 6. You're going to have to win this one because you got your one against Eastern Kentucky. They have this one. I think they have, is it Toledo?
Toledo. Yeah.
Toledo, then someone, I think, towards the end of the year, they should maybe Mercer or somebody they should give. But you're right. If they win this, they should go 4-0. And again, I keep saying the perfect season for him. Yeah, no losing season is a perfect season. But year one, be an exciting product of offense. Looks like they could potentially be that from Saturday. I know it's Eastern Kentucky. Go 4-0 and steal one conference game. I don't know who that could be. Maybe Arkansas at home, Texas A&M at home, somebody like that. But it needs to start this weekend in Tempe. It's going to have to get it done. This is a must-win game. It really is. I think some people are surprised how big the line is. I think Vegas is probably a little early in the season, kind of like, I don't know what to expect from these two teams. There's just a lot of transfers. So I'm just going to go with the team who had the better win on Saturday, and they're at home. So I think that's kind of where we're at right now from that perspective. But this is one of the more under the radar good games of the weekend and meaningful games in the SEC from a standpoint of, hey, what does Mississippi State really look like against a team that has a pulse that's probably on the similar level of them?
Kickoff from Sun Devil Stadium late. SEC After Dark. Who thought we'd ever say that type of thing? 9:30 at night. Dave, here's one thing that I always look at that I kind of have to throw, I think, this notion out the window whenever we talk about a Lebby or a Heupel offense. Did you know that in that game against Eastern Kentucky actually had the better time of possession, 38:06 to 21:54. And the score would usually dictate that you play in favor of the team that usually holds on to the football because if you're not able to capitalize as fast. Am I overlooking that when I say that Jeff Lebby needs 4 great plays to put himself in a situation where he walks away with at least 3 points? And his brand of offense, the up-tempo, the ability to catch defenses slipping, you don't have to win the time of possession to feel like that you're winning the afternoon. Or I guess in the sense the evening for this one.
No, I mean, just because it's such an explosive base game now. I mean, what they scored in 30 seconds the other day?
Yeah, there was like 2 drives where they scored in 45 seconds or less.
Yeah, I mean, that's just their offense. They're trying to run 2 plays a minute of like real time and game time. So, yeah, I don't think they really give a crap about winning the time of possession, especially if they're scoring. Now, again, if you're not doing that come league play and you're giving that football right back to the other team's offense and your defense, who has some questions on their personnel side of things, first time DC and Coleman Hutzler, yeah, that could be an issue. I really am interested to see just the style of play in this one because I think both teams, I feel like Kenny Dillingham and them feel like, hey, we may be able to run on this team. That may be their game plan coming into it. I'm interested to see what Mississippi State does. This will be an interesting game because they both need it, but also the strategies here. You're right. I don't think Mississippi State, I don't really think they're going to adjust their style no matter what, even when they get in the league play. I think it's first year. They're going to feel the lay of the land in the league. But I think specifically for Saturday, I think they're going to keep doing their style. I think they're going to go up tempo, try to score as many points as possible. And I think we are going to see a lot of points on Saturday night as well.
If you are looking at the line currently, it sits at over under 59.5. That feels like an easy play based off the style of offenses that these two run. Very different, but still very attack mode styles. You're going to hit the over. When I look at Arizona State, I look at Sam Leavitt, and that's the transfer that comes on in from Michigan State. Highly touted coming out of the state of Washington. One of the best players that was expected to be a long-term answer for the Spartans. He now gets to come down. He now gets to rewrite his chapter. I thought he looked confident. I thought that with still some question marks on Arizona State's offensive line, he never seemed to feel under duress. This is a redshirt freshman that had one full offseason to kind of learn the ins and outs of college football. And he played very seldomly last year in East Lansing. But I feel like the thing that I got to do if I'm Mississippi State is rattle him, force him to just feel like he has to maneuver outside the pocket. Because if you're still a young quarterback that's going to make mental mistakes and you feel confident because of the way that you played in high school made you one of the best quarterbacks in the Pacific Northwest. But it is different when you go to the collegiate level. And it is different when you play against an SEC defense, regardless of how good or bad they are, because of just the talent level is usually ample size expanded when it comes to that. If you can force him to get outside the pocket and you could force him to feel comfortable throwing that football to where a cornerback maybe is a step behind but knows you can catch on up, that's leading to turnovers. That's leading to opportunities to where you can strike fast, get your defense back out on the field. And it does feel like that you're kind of cannibalizing this team. The word cannibalized for me is really important in this game because the thing you want to do is beat them from the inside. You want them to be the ones making mistakes because if you don't need much time when you watch the way they played last week to punch it on in, get back into the red zone, find a way to go ahead and get an easy 6 points and let your defense go ahead and respond. You're basically taking away points that should be given up, and they're now going towards your stat sheet.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this whole season going to come down to Mississippi State's defense until they attack people. So, yeah, they need to force some turnovers this week. I don't think it's ever going to be a defense this year just stopping people in their tracks. I think this game really is going to come down to who the turnover margin, who gets those extra possessions, especially with these two offenses.
Player of the game. We always say this whenever we work together. Who is the one guy that you're looking for? And let's just keep it consistent. Let's do one player that you're looking for from Mississippi State and one player you're looking for from Arizona State. Let's start with Mississippi State.
For Mississippi State, I'm going to be looking for – I want to see a little bit more from our guy, Kedrick Bingley-Jones, number 22, interior defensive lineman. It plays with a little bit too high a pad level at times. Mississippi State's defensive line is a major question mark. That is why I could see Kenny Dillingham and them being like, you know what, we can go back to this let's see if they can stop our run game. We don't have to go air it out. Let's see what we can do in this run game. I think Kedrick Bingley-Jones from Mississippi State and across the board. I mean, DeMonte Russell, the other defensive end over there, not the other, just the defensive end over there is another guy that you need to keep an eye on as well. Mississippi State defense, this is probably the worst defensive line Mississippi State's had depth-wise. I think they would even tell you that, the fans. They've had 15 years. I mean, this was usually, even when they had Dan Mullen, they had Joe Moorhead, you had Mike Leach, you had Zach Arnett. They always had some guys, at least one, two sometimes, on the defensive front. I don't see that this year. So I'll be interested to see. That's where I think you could see Kenny Dillingham and them kind of being like, you know what, we're going to kind of establish the run here for Mississippi State. And I think you said it from a player to look for Arizona State. I think the same Lebby, the quarterback. I mean, that's going to be key. They're going to have to affect him, probably bring some pressures because I don't see Mississippi State getting a lot of pressure on their own with this defensive line I was just talking about. Sam Levitt is that guy you need to keep an eye on. He's going to be a key factor in this game, good, bad, or indifferently. But I think Mississippi State needs to come away with 2 to 3 turnovers in this game to get the ball back in their offensive hands, get the ball back in Blake Shapen's hands, who I think could be the overall best player in this game. I mean, he looked really good, especially at the mesh point this past weekend when you go back and watch the Eastern Kentucky game. Just real comfortable, like you mentioned, Cole, in this Lebby offense. You could not have asked for a better one-year quarterback with that much experience. Hell, this guy's won a conference championship before at Baylor back in 2021. I think that's going to be key. I think he can be the best player. But the two guys, again, for sure, I think Bingley-Jones for Mississippi State on that defensive line, because that's going to be key. They got to get better there. They got to be better than we think if they want to get to 6 wins. And I think it goes to the other side too. It's going to be Sam Levitt. I think the key is going to be Mississippi State's offense, that defensive front against this Arizona State run game and Sam Levitt. What do they do there? That is going to be, I think it's going to determine who wins this football game.
If you're looking at this from Arizona State's perspective, I want to go with Keyshawn Elliott. He was the guy that got a big time interception, led the team in tackles with 7 stops. New Mexico State transfer, has played against quality competition. Remember, this was a guy that last year went down to Jordan-Hare Stadium to take on Auburn. So he is not unknown when it comes to playing against SEC-style players. And the fact that if you can't establish a run to where you have to pass, where you have to keep the up-tempo going, if you take away that element with a guy like Elliott playing at the line of scrimmage, forcing you to have to go ahead and move outside, that's probably a key element for my opinion. Kevin Coleman, I want to see more of him. The Jacksonville State Louisville transfer comes on in 5 catches, 88 yards, touchdown in that game, long of 25-yard reception. I think that was for the score. This is a guy
that scored within the 30 seconds.
30-second mark. I think that was him. This is a guy that's played against top competition like this on a regular basis when he was in the ACC last year. And he was a proponent of the ACC last year. Over 330 receiving yards, 2 touchdown catches. So he made some plays against really quality offense. And also, if anybody is going to know how to be able to take on defenses that are similar to what you saw in ACC, because of you are similarities between what resides out in Arizona State and what you see on ACC on a regular basis, it's probably a guy that just recently came on over from there. So I think that he has got to really step up. I think that they realized what last week looked like for this team when they had to go play and try and take away top elements. I feel like that this is somebody who can easily be that difference maker from the get-go. Kickoff at 9:30. Game is going to be on ESPN at Mountain America Stadium. Kickoff weather, 103 degrees at kickoff. 6.5 point spread in favor of the Sun Devils, over under at 59. Dave, let's not beat around the bush. Who walks away with the win and why?
I think I'm going to take Mississippi State in the points. I think they get the 34-28 win. I think 3 Arizona State turnovers is the difference. I think you're going to look at the box score and make, Arizona State, when they didn't turn the football over, had success on the ground. I think you're going to see that again. But I think Mississippi State's opportunistic defense gets them a win. I still think there's some holes on that defense that aren't going to be solved this week, but I think the turnovers is going to be the difference. I think the offense keeps operating, as you saw against Eastern Kentucky. Obviously not to that extent, but I still think they keep rolling until they face a better defense. But I think turnovers in Tempe are going to be the difference. Arizona State turns it over 3 times. Mississippi State gets a big 34-28, much needed non-conference win to start 2-0 in the Jeff Lebby era in Starkville.
I agree with you on almost everything that you said. I do believe this comes down to a game-winning field goal. I do believe that this is going to be one of those games where you are trusting your special teams just to feel confident, and you don't really care about how you got to win. A win is a win. You're not going to go look back at the playbook and go, this is where we've at. It's year 1 for Jeff Lebby. It's year 2 for Kenny Dillingham. I feel like just because I trust the quarterback combination of head coach Moore, I will go Mississippi State. They're going to get the over. I go 31-30 final score, game-winning field goal to end it. You head on back. It's well past midnight in Starkville, but you're starting off the year 2-0. You feel a lot better about the direction that you're going in before the start of conference play. And who knows? I've already said I've eaten crow whenever it comes to Jeff Lebby. I said if they get to 6 wins, I will gladly eat crow live on air. You're starting to prove me to feel like that this team is going to be better than advertised. Bowl eligibility, I don't think is off the docket, even with a loss in this game. But you certainly feel a lot better about the direction this team is headed and how they're going to look against conference opponents with a massive win in Tempe. But let us know in the comment section down below, where were we right, where were we wrong? Do you think that Mississippi State can pull off the quote-unquote upset win out in Tempe, Arizona? If you're an Arizona State fan, do you think that we're idiots just being too kind to the SEC? Make sure that you like, rate, review, subscribe. Also, follow us on all the social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at SEC Unfiltered. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. And keep up with all of the #1 source for SEC, visit SECunfiltered.com. For Shumate, I'm Cole Thompson. Hail State Bulldog Nation. Later.